This show contains movie spoilers and swearing.
Excuse me. Well, what's that star on the wall for?
You made me miss.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Bitesize Cinema. I'm your host RJ McCready, and for this episode I'm going to be taking you guys back to the year in 1981 to look at the cult classic horror movie American Werewolf in London. And joining me for the show today, it's been a long time coming. A is for Apple and B is for Boz. Boz, welcome to the show.
Hey! Oh, that was from our little sting, wasn't it? I'd forgotten that. It's been so long since I had a podcast.
See? Boz, I do listen to your show, mate. There you go.
You.
It's a little
Appreciate
shout out
it.
to your show. So, welcome
Now
to
I just blag
Bitesize.
on everybody else's whenever I can. Let's just keep myself going.
Not a problem at all. Well, I finally reeled you in, mate. I thought, come on to Bitesize. Let's get Boz on here. We need to
Well,
get
you
chatting.
bribed me by saying I could talk about lightsabers, so that...
Well, yes, is it. Yeah, we're going to forget about American Werewolf in London. We're going to talk about Star Wars and your lightsabers. Let's get into that. What's going on with the lightsaber thing? There's a lot of stuff going on there with you at the moment.
Oh, mate, it's been a whirlwind. It's been an absolute whirlwind.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is I've been talking about it because I've been at this for probably... Well, I first got interested in it about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And well, just going to go back further than that. When I was a kid, I don't remember a moment in my life where Star Wars wasn't a thing.
Oh, you and me both.
It came out in 1977, in
Yep.
the year I was born,
Right.
and the hype took a few years to get going. So I grew up into all of it. All my friends at school had all the toys, and every stick I've ever picked up since I could walk went when I moved it around.
Yeah.
Because that's just what you do. So I was obsessed with swords my whole life, and then I got into fencing and found a legitimate way to do swords. But I used to fence competitively in the UK up till I was about 16, so
Wow.
had a national ranking, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I went into martial arts a bit, looking for the fencing replacement because my club had closed and nothing really fit the bill. I did taekwondo for a few years. And I just sort of flitted around, really. Went back to fencing, fell out of it, went back to it, fell out of it. And sort of get to 2 years ago when the last of the... What's a ninology? The 9th movie in the series came out. And
God.
we went to the midnight screening because I'm a massive Star Wars nerd. I had to be at the premiere. So I go to my local Epsom cinema, midnight, walk in, and there's a couple of guys there in fencing masks hitting each other with plastic lightsabers. And they're like, we're doing a workshop. I was like, where do I sign?
Yeah.
And that was my introduction to Silver Sabres, of who I'm now a card-carrying member. And weirdly, in that period, that was just a satellite club that was sort of starting up.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a lot of traction. Just as we were starting to get a bit of traction, then COVID hit, because it took months to get sorted. Then into that period, the main group in Hendon in London, who train at the Leon Paul headquarters, which is like the home of fencing in the UK. They're the biggest supplier of fencing stuff in the world. They let us train at their headquarters. The guy who runs it there, the Big Cheese, he started doing online training videos. And I realised that it was all tied into traditional Tai Chi.
Oh, okay. Right.
So it sort of gave me the swords back, but it also gave me my interest in martial things back as well. And I'm like, could there be anything more perfect for me on this planet? It was just like, all my chickens had come home to roost. So I started training online. They then started online classes to go through the basics online. And obviously I teach my yoga classes online. So I've got a big room with a camera. So it was perfect. And then, of course, when things started to unlock, I'd also moved house in the interim to north of London. So Hendon became my local club.
Wow.
And I started going down there every Friday night and training for 2 hours in what, like 15-year-old me, if I'd walked into that room, the fencing Sal at Leon's wall, I'd have just dropped on my knees and gone, I'm not worthy. And like the weirdest thing is, I go there every Friday now, and I couldn't give a shit about the fencing. It's so funny.
So what's happened here is you've gone to a midnight showing, and this big door's opened up in your world, and I think it's great. And myself here, Boz, I'm also a kid from 1977, so I'm kind of giving away a few things here. You know, my secret identity, my other alter ego, which is a secret.
I won't tell anyone.
But I myself do not know a world without Star Wars. Like, I don't know a world without a fucking shark in the water either. Being growing up with Jaws and all these other things that we grew up in the 80s, and you know, thinking that there was going to be a nuclear war and all that sort of stuff. So,
I don't think I focused on that ever. I was just like, when's the next Star Wars thing coming, and why haven't I got an AT-AT yet? That was just...
See, I actually got an AT-AT for Christmas. Yeah.
Oh, you're one of those rich kids.
Oh, I ain't, mate. I'm not one of those.
I had a battle-damaged X-Wing, and that was still... Nothing tops getting that. Honestly, it's still my favourite present.
Oh man, I can still smell the plastic from those toys. You know, there's just something about it. So yeah, it's burnt into me. That is. But moving on from.
Sorry. I was going to say. Just what had legitimised it before that, though, I sort of missed that bit out. Is that I found out probably about 8 months before I walked into that cinema that the French Sports Council and their main fencing body had recognised LED saber dueling as an official sport with an official rule set, and ratified by their sports council.
Right.
So I was like, right, this isn't playing around anymore. This is going to become a sport, and I want in on the ground floor. So I started making inquiries in the UK at that point, and I didn't find anything, which is annoying because it means I didn't do my research properly, because I should have found Silver Sabres, because they've been at it about 2-3 years at that point. So we're behind the French in that respect. So a lot of what we're doing is we're trying to get it to become a competition sport, as well as all the other cool shit we do, which is going to Comic-Cons, dressing up, and fighting in front of people. Yeah.
That's a good excuse for that as well.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to quickly say, Boz, was you did a podcast. Was it Little Pod of Horrors?
Yeah.
What happened to that? Is it just the fact that you got busy with everything else? And I know that was quite a long-running show for you, wasn't it?
It was, and it was never even my show. It was started by Gordon, who was my co-host, years and years ago, about the time I quit my first podcast. And he'd moved to the States, to Indiana. He's from Edinburgh. And he said, I've got to fold it in. And it'd been about 6 months. We were closing our show. We were doing like our penultimate recording, and he was in the chat room. And I said, Gordon, I loved your show. I loved the professionalism of how you set everything up. I love horror films. I said, look, if you brought that show back, I would co-host it with you. And he did. And then he took a step back and kind of went, yeah, you're kind of doing everything. Just take it on. So I ran with it for quite a few years, but his life just got more and more chaotic. The time difference was a problem. The problem really is having time to watch the movies. I was going to film festivals, and it was just me talking all the time, because I was the only one I had anything to talk about. We dragged our mate Timo into it from Finland, so I had a 2-hour time difference in that direction and a 5-hour time difference in the other direction, and we just couldn't make it work.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's a lot to try and sort out, isn't it? Similar how I got into podcasting, actually, because Ricky Morgan invited me on to Dude Looks Like the 80s. And then he had to go away and do other stuff, and I kind of took over the reins, did that for a bit, and then created Bitesize Cinema, and here we are. So
it's like the American me, really.
Well, yeah.
I've got a new project. Do this now.
It's Ricky Morgan for you.
I love this stuff. I love it.
It's great stuff.
There's a kinship there, because my very first podcast, which actually there's a couple of episodes online if anyone's interested, because I'm re-releasing the old shows just for shits and giggles. It's called Here Goes Nothing Redux. But one of the things we used to do is we used to do stuff like fake adverts and like skits and bits way back then, and I loved the hell out of doing that stuff.
Yeah, it's all the fun of it, isn't it? Yeah.
Very time consuming though.
Well, we're here to talk about American Werewolf in London today, so what we'll do then, Boz, is that we'll play a trailer to that film, and we'll come back soon, guys, and see you shortly.
Did you hear that? What was it? A coyote. There aren't any coyotes in England.
What happened to them?
Well, the police report said they were attacked by an escaped lunatic. Must have been a very powerful man.
Jack and I were not attacked by a man.
It's an animal. A wolf.
Did he say a wolf?
Yes, I believe he did.
Did you get a good look at the man who attacked you?
Doctor, my memory is fine. It's my sanity I'm beginning to worry about.
You've never had bad dreams before?
Well, sure, as a kid, but never so real, never so weird.
I'm going to look into your eyes.
My friend Jack was just here.
Your dead friend, Jack.
Hi, David. He told me that I will become a monster in 2 days.
The supernatural, the power of darkness, it's all true. Please believe me.
Believe what? That tomorrow night, beneath the full moon, I'll sprout hair and fangs and eat people?
You'd be surprised what horrors a man is capable of.
Are you all right now?
I don't know. I'll let you know the next full moon. I'm a werewolf.
You're gonna change. You'll kill people. You'll become...
I know. A monster.
David, don't lose control!
Control? What control?
David, I can help you.
No, I'm not safe to be with. You gotta stay away from me. Run!
And welcome back, everybody. So the synopsis to this film is two American college students on a walking tour of Britain are attacked by a werewolf that none of the locals would admit exists. It's got a 7.5 on IMDb, it's around about a 90-minute runtime, and it was directed by John Landis. So, Boz, American Werewolf in London. First of all, do you like this film? Let's ask that question. Is it a movie you like?
Well, I wouldn't have jumped at it if I didn't.
Yeah,
it's up there for me. It's one of my all-time faves.
So when did you first watch this film? Was it a little bit later on, or...?
No, the reason this film holds such a special place for me is it's what made me a horror fan. There was inklings and other things along the way, but by utterly fucking terrifying me.
Yeah.
Which I think is often a lot of people's story with horror. People who aren't horror fans don't get it. And I'm like, that's because you didn't watch something you shouldn't at about 7 years old. Yeah. If you had, you'd probably be one of us. But what actually happened was it was on TV. And my stepdad and my sister were downstairs watching it. I'd gone to bed already because I was young. And they had the TV turned up way too loud. So I heard the wolf howls. I heard him getting savaged on the moors. And the sound of it all coming up the stairs was terrifying. I ended up screaming at the top of my lungs for them to turn the TV down. They probably felt awful. And then familiar. A few days, I struggled as a kid at night. I was scared of the dark badly because of a kid's TV show. I can't remember which one it was. It was a Saturday morning TV show, and they did this like ghost schools and something or other, and it was like folklore tales and a little animated book thing, and they talked about the Black Shuck legend, and it terrified me.
Well, there was a lot of fucked up TV shows when we was growing up, wasn't there? I think. Terrify us.
I mean, it probably looked completely innocuous now, but they talked about people thinking they saw a black dog, stopping, getting out of the car, then it's not there. The bit that got me is then some people reported they saw one with a single flaming eye in the middle of its forehead, and they'd done an artist's rendition of what this might look like.
Yeah.
I would wake up screaming seeing that thing in my bedroom. It was awful. It was so bad. I had such a, sleep was.
Well,
when I went to bed, if my parents came up to bed and turned off the landing light when they went to bed, I lived in dread of that moment. I had to fall asleep before they went to bed. Otherwise, the lack of light under the door just sent me into this downward spiral, and I get in trouble if I turn my light on.
Well, the film talking about like that, the film that really fucked me up as a kid was Watership Down. Fuck that movie.
Yeah.
Go fuck that movie, you know, movie about bunny rabbits. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Oh, it's all right. You can watch that with your. I was round my nan's. Oh, you can watch that with your sister. Holy shit in hell!
Yeah, that messed me up as well. Yeah, never let a kid see that.
No,
jeez.
Oh,
so
dear.
About 3 days after this occurrence, it turns out my dad had a VHS recorder, and he'd recorded it off the telly.
Yeah,
that's highly illegal, but he'd done it. I found the tape, and when nobody was around, I stuck it in and I watched it, and it scared the shit out of me. Mm-hmm. The kill on the moor, weirdly the Nazi zombies bit didn't really have an impact at all, which surprises me watching it now because it was so visceral.
Right? Yeah.
But of course, by the time you get to when you get to the end of the movie and all the corpses are sitting in the cinema, you're like, this is funny. Like my child brain it missed most of the comedy up to that point. Because I guess I was just in shock and awe. And I was just at that age of, ooh, boobs. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's interesting, but it's interesting. So there's all these little bits along the way. And I just ended up adoring the movie. And it sort of cured me of so many things I'd been scared of.
So when you watched it as an adult, did you kind of get that sort of cinema trauma at all? I mean, it's still today. Do you still feel like that 7-year-old? No, you don't. No, it's
all love now. It's the horror fan in me's taken over, and it's nostalgia, and it's the refreshing thing was when I watched it years and years later, because obviously you've moved on to other stuff. That first sort of revisit, I was like, fuck! I didn't realise how much more dark comedy is in it than I had realised.
Well, this is it. I mean, I was watching it last night, because I fucked up the date when we were supposed to be recording yesterday, as you know, as I posted on Facebook. And, when I was watching it, because you watch it with more of a critical eye, don't you, when you're about to do a podcast, and I thought, this is... I think I have realised it before, but you think this is partly a comedy, isn't it? It's sort of horror comedy. I felt like there was a little bit of Hammer in there, if you know what I mean. Just, where they sort of go into the slaughtered lamb, and you've got the doctor. That could have been Peter Cushing for me, do you know what I mean? Going out investigating and stuff. But for me, the first time I actually saw this film was actually the VHS cover in the video shop. So I saw the werewolf and I thought, oh my god, that's scaring the shit out of me. Do you know what I mean?
It's the best, still to date, I think, the best werewolf design ever.
Yeah. Oh my, I mean, let's just talk about the Rick Baker transformation scene. I mean, I was watching it last night and I thought, this looks real. Do you know what I mean? This looks like a man that is turning into a fucking werewolf. I cannot fault that at all. I don't know how you feel on that, but it's just...
I was worried it wouldn't have aged too well, given what we've seen in the interim. But to be honest, I've seen it done so badly with CG, and then badly practically as well. I mean, it's obviously stretchy latex, but like all of the hair on the hands has been poked in. It's like that takes hours and hours, and it's just, and the nose expanding. Honestly, it's brilliant. And I've seen the animatronic head at Universal Studios for that, so that was a real geek out moment.
Oh right, okay. Well. Oh wow, did you? Oh great.
Yeah, it's one of the attractions there. So they do like a horror show thing, and then they've got one of the heads or a version of it down there, and they show you how it elongates the snout through the front of the face, which is the best bit.
Yeah. And I've got to mention Jenny Agutter in this movie as well. She comes out with a fantastic line. David, I'm going to be straight with you. I've had 7 partners in my life. 3 of those are one-night stands. A couple of those are lovers. I'm thinking, what a line to a movie.
Yeah, we get it all out there, love. And she does, doesn't she?
Chuck it all in there.
Well, she has a special place for me as well, because she was like, prepubescent male. Our school let us watch Walkabout. Is it Walkabout or kind of? Is that the film?
Yeah, that's right. Walkabout. She
was like at school. It's like, yeah, that made me feel funny too. So I'd already seen those.
I saw them as well when I was watching Logan's Run.
Oh, of course.
With my mum and dad.
No, she's great. one of the bits I do love is like, I'm just a working girl. My flat isn't up to much. And she walks into this apartment and like, as a person who's worked in London for the last 20 years, I'm like,
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Right now, I mean, actually, the price of shit really is fun in that movie, isn't it? Oh, that'd be £1, please. You're like, really?
Yeah.
In Leicester Square? I don't think so.
I was going to say, yeah, that's it. I can't keep up with inflation. She's going like stuff like that.
If she was just a working nurse and she'd kept that flat, love, that's worth like 2.5 million now, probably.
Easy, yeah. That's funny. That's what I was thinking last night. I thought, oh my god. Oh man. But yeah, no, the whole setup of this movie, there's some good lines. You got Brian Glover in this as well, haven't you? He turns up, and Rick Mail, going back to the slaughtered lamb. It's that typical.
You've never seen Rick Mail, that is.
I was going to say that as well, actually. Yeah, he's very sort of withdrawn there, isn't he? But yeah, it's. I always thought that it was you made me spill my pint, but you just made me miss, and I don't know why I keep thinking that. It's one of those lines, isn't it?
You made me miss.
Yeah. And then of course you got some comedy scenes here where he's waking up in a zoo and he's got no clothes on, isn't he? And you know, it's a bit of a dodgy bit, isn't it? He's in a bush and he's asking for some balloons, isn't he, from a kid? This is dodgy, isn't it?
Oh, it's the full Benny Hill section, that is, isn't it? Like, there's full-on slapstick at points in this movie. Like with the guys at the doctor's office and he just knocks all the kidney bowls on the floor. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, I did notice that as well, because I did a review for werewolves in the Mystery Vault podcast that I do.
Right.
And I don't know whether they've done it on purpose, but the thing with werewolves that they say is there's a cycle in the body to do with the kidneys, and it's something to do with the water that spins around our body. And it's kind of like a plausible explanation for werewolves or something. And I just saw the kidney trays, and there was a diagraph. Could have just been a, one of.
I wouldn't put that past Landis. I really wouldn't.
It was just, you know what I mean? I watched it and I thought, I don't know if that was done on purpose or maybe I'm just overseeing it, but whether it's just a little Easter egg in there or not. The other thing for you and I'd imagine as well, as you mentioned working in London, the thing with this film is I can relate to these locations. So Piccadilly Circus doesn't look that much different now to what it was in 1981, is it really? Apart from the odd... was it porn cinema? Was it on the main high street?
Oh, I'll bring those back. I love the fact that they shot the porn movie just to be in this movie.
Yeah,
like they didn't just get one off the shelf. Because there must have been some that are as awful, but the comedy in that is brilliant.
Oh yeah.
I told you never to do this again. Never seen you before in my life. Oh, sorry. It's brilliant.
Oh dear, that's what I mean. It bounces back and forth, doesn't it? So a bit of horror, a bit of comedy, a bit of drama, bit of an investigation as well. But
when it's nasty, it's proper nasty. And I'll tell you one thing that hit me, because this is really great because I have DVDs and Blu-rays and shit, but not a lot of them, and very rarely do I buy them. Very rarely, because I just because I struggle so much to keep up with what's new and watching new stuff. I'm not very good at going back and watching the old stuff, but I did buy the 4K restoration of this when it came out because I'm like, I have to have that. Like this and The Thing, there was no question. I was buying that. Yeah. I still haven't watched The Thing restoration. What I was a bit disappointed at is I thought that this Blu-ray had the documentary on it as well, which is longer than the movie, the one they did a few years ago and played at Fright Fest. I never saw that. So I was going to watch that as well for this podcast. That's not on there.
You know what, for a 4K restoration, I would have thought it would have been for that. But
yeah, I was surprised. But obviously the 4K looks stunning, and I was expecting, you expect to see the gaps in stuff they never thought you'd see because it was on a CRT monitor or a crinkly cinema screen. And the prosthetics on Jack the first time he comes in, where he's fresh, fucking superb. Like you can't see the seams in the makeup. Like there are films now where I can see the seam in the makeup and the foundation overlaying the the wound over the insert, and you're just like, they were really, I mean, that's Rick Baker again, isn't it? Just superb at their craft.
That's what I mean. I was thinking this again when I was rewatching it. This film seems timeless to me as well. I know it's set in the early 80s, but there's nothing in this film that really feels out of date at all. It just feels like a really good film set in a certain time, but like I say,
maybe a tube station that empty, but other than that...
Oh, maybe, yeah, there's that, although I have been in a tube station that late at night.
Have you? I have come down the escalators, and where you see the archway at the bottom, you expect to just see two furry grey feet pad out, don't you?
Every damn time. Yes, I do.
Every time.
Yeah, I've been on the Tottenham Court Road on the Northern Line, and I can smell it now, because when you go down in those tubes, you just smell that smell, can't you? And I'm just thinking, American Werewolf in London. Here we go. It's going to happen. But yeah, no, it's like I say, it's a good werewolf movie. On the whole, is there any other werewolf movies that you think compared to this, or do you think this one tops the charts mostly?
I mean, everyone says The Howling, but it just never really grabbed me like that. And same with Silver Bullet. I heard about them sort of coming up, and that was sort of built up. Oh, maybe this will be as good, but nothing really comes close. You know, apart from maybe American Werewolf in Paris. No, I'm taking a piss. It's terrible.
Oh, God.
But I'm a massive fan of werewolf movies, and it is because of this one.
Yeah.
But everything gets held to the standard of this. I suppose the next best one for me is definitely Dog Soldiers.
Yes, yeah, I was going to say Dog Soldiers in a different light. I mean, it's got all the humour in it, isn't it? I quite like
and the gritty British thing, I think, helps.
Yeah, I think so. When I watched that, I got it straight away. You know, with Sean Pertwee. Saying he gives his watch, doesn't he, to Spoon. Spoon goes, "What are you gonna do, Sarge?" He goes, "Oh well, I'll just have to count, won't I?" And I thought, yeah, that's such a thing we're gonna say, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's British humour right there.
My favourite line in that one, again, the most British thing ever, is he's in the kitchen, he's thrown a few saucepans at its head, it pins him up against the wall, and he goes, "I hope I give you this shit."
Oh, it's just that's the thing. It's a great script in that film, isn't it? It's just it's so quotable, isn't it? You know.
And the wolves are so big and intimidating, and I do love the fully biped wolves, I have to say. Like, actually, weirdly, the other film that does that quite well is the Underworld movies, like the early ones.
Oh, right, yeah.
I know people slate those, but again, just because I love werewolves, I tend to love those movies, and because they're big.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to admit, I do like The Howling. I was talking to Bo about this yesterday on the other show, and I do like the bipedic, as you said. I think that type of werewolf looks really good. And obviously that's Botine, isn't it, that had a go at making those werewolves. And of course there's that crossover here, because Rick Baker was supposed to do The Howling, wasn't he? And then he he was, and then he promised John Landis that he'd do this movie for him before that came out. So I think it came out about the same time.
Because that's another big transformation scene, isn't it, that was considered one of the good ones.
It is. It's not bad, but the one in this movie is better, and I've got to give it that. Do you know what I mean? It's just
definitely,
yeah. So
and the only one that tried it recently was Late Phases.
I've seen that. Yeah, was that the one with the blind bloke?
Yeah, I loved it. A lot of people were a bit like, nah. Came up on the summer series and it didn't really get much talk, but I was just like, I think because the werewolves had kind of weird faces, a bit of a wide smile, a bit too cartoonish, but just the whole conceit of him just fucking up a load of werewolves when he can't see them is brilliant.
Yeah, I do remember. I think it was like a bit of a budget, wasn't it? That cheap. I think it was done on a bit of a budget, wasn't it? Like an indie movie or something like that.
Yeah.
Which came on, but
yeah, I mean, there's the sort of guerrilla filmmaking aspect at the end of it. That's why I wanted to see that documentary, because I think they go into deep dives on a lot of that kind of stuff. But I think Leicester Square was like they had chance to do one take with all that, so they choreographed everything away, or the car crashes and everything else, and they had like one go at it, and then had to just sort of clear it in 5 minutes so they can open the roads again.
Yeah, that's quite a good point, actually. Yeah, because I couldn't see any other way of doing that. They would have had to
massively stressful.
Of course, yeah, not half. Because I think you got Vic Armstrong in there as well as one of the stuntmen who did all the Indiana Jones stuff.
Yeah, if you want to check out podcasts about stunt stuff, one for your listeners, look up the Stunt Pod. It's done by sort of a friend of mine, Blake, and they've interviewed, I'm pretty sure him, Well, they've interviewed pretty much everybody in the biz who's done anything. People, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, but it's a real inside baseball look at stunt work.
Yeah.
Because, it's disgusting, but stunts are still not recognised by the Academy. There is still no Academy Award for stunt coordination or best stunt or any of that stuff. People die doing this shit. People don't die doing fucking makeup. They get a fucking Oscar. Sorry, I'm quite sweary when I get passionate.
Swear right, don't worry about it.
I've just ruined it if it is.
Swear what you want on this spot. So go.
Okay.
Got a big alert at the beginning.
Werewolves. No, so there's a lot of talk on there from people who, have the position of, isn't it time we got recognised, sort of thing. That's a really interesting discussion I found from that, and they got a lot of episodes. It's not running currently, but the back catalogue is brilliant. And if you are interested in stunts and how they're done, and also innovation, so they're talking to people like, well, this wasn't possible before, so what we did was this. Talking like the car barrel rolls that they do, and how they just decided chuck the seat out and just put bungees in all directions, so the driver's basically floating on bungee cords.
Right.
So that the shock in every direction is sort of absorbed and you bounce around like a beach ball. And the talk of air ramps and hitting them wrong, hitting them right, hitting the bag, not hitting the bag. It's fascinating stuff. Sorry for the shameless plug.
No, I always thought that perhaps maybe they did get an Oscar or something like that up until you mentioned it now. I never realised that they didn't because, No,
I didn't. So I listened to their show. I had no idea. You just assume that if the makeup department can get an Oscar, that the guy who flings himself 400 feet off a cliff can get one. But no, apparently not.
So what? It's not even like a nomination or anything like that. It's just...
No, it's not a category.
Wow.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, because without the stuntmen, you wouldn't really have the movie, would you? Let's face it. Do you know what I mean?
Pretty much any movie.
You wouldn't have Indiana Jones, would you? Let's face it.
I mean, I got to know Blake recently, and he helped out in a little short film I was involved with, and I was like, there's no stunts in this movie. He's like, well, somebody rides a bicycle. I'm like, yeah. He says, right, so you need a stunt coordinator type risk assessment for, do they have to go down a curb? They could fall off. They're not wearing protective equipment. If they fall off, what happens to the actor? So you've got to cover every... I'm like, shit, yeah. He said, there's pyrotechnics, isn't there? Well, yeah, but they're not near anyone, so you can still go off and hit someone. That needs a risk assessment. You're like, oh, right, yeah. So stunt coordinators don't just do the big jump off a cliff. They look at every aspect where someone does something physical that could go wrong. That could be climbing 2 steps out of a truck cab and twisting your ankle when you land. And Tom Cruise is famous for oh yeah, I do my own stunts. And it's like, yes, but what you got to understand, Tom, is the way the film industry works is people are freelance, self-employed. They get a gig, it gets lined up. They block out 3-4 weeks, months, whatever, how big the project is in their diary, because you are the star of this movie. And then you decide you're going to do a stunt where you jump over a chair and twist your ankle, and you can't shoot again for the next 2 months. They are then off that shoot. They have to find other work. When that shoot comes back in, they may not be available. They might not get to finish that project because you wouldn't let a stuntman do the stunt. So, there's not a criticism of Tom Cruise. It's cool what he does, but you don't think of that side of it either.
Yeah, that's right. That's one way to look at it, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So a massive tangent there.
No, it's not a problem. That's
what I do.
Let's talk about American Werewolf in London. Let's chuck Tom Cruise in there.
Hey, he was in The Mummy. That was Universal Monsters, wasn't it?
Yeah, wasn't a fan of that one, to be honest with you. I'm not. Yeah. I'm not really. Don't throw loads. People don't throw stuff. I'm not a massive Tom Cruise fan, to be honest with you. Never have been. I'm a man from the 80s, but Top Gun's my least favourite 80s movie, if I'm honest with you. So,
really interesting. So you won't be going to see Maverick then?
I'm not interested. I'm being a film fan that I am. Tom Cruise has never done it for me. He's always been the sort of popular kid at school, which I wasn't, if you know what I mean. So I'm more of the underdog, Ghostbusters, Axel Foley, that type of thing. So people that I can relate to, but no, he's just a little bit too shiny teeth and stuff like that. But like I say, just my opinion. There you go. So there you go. This is where it's led us. American Werewolf in London has led us to Tom Cruise and stuntmen not getting Oscars. So we need to sort that one out.
I mean, in terms of sort of the physicality of the wolf as well in this, Like we say, he's on all fours, which I don't mind because that face design is what it is. And I just think that the evilness they put into that face, the yellow eyes, the scrunched up lines going down towards the nose, and the teeth are... There's so much teeth!
Yeah.
And I was watching an outtake on that DVD. There were some bits on it that were interesting. And it was the bit where it's sort of running through Leicester Square. So they're tracking with the camera. And it's basically just a guy with his hand in his head going rah, rah, rah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think I've seen that actually on the clip.
And you got the woman there. She's just putting... They're giggling. And there's no soundtrack, unfortunately, because it was obviously on film. But she's putting like... slobber in the mouth of the wolf, and you're like, that's lube, isn't it? Everyone's laughing because that's lube. You're in Leicester Square opposite a porn theatre. I reckon it's probably the best thing for the job. It's probably KY jelly. You know?
Yeah, that's it. Works for everything, doesn't it?
Well, like, yeah, everyone on film set sniggers about that shit, and I guarantee you that's what was going on.
Give me some KY. And then, of course, you've got the famous scene here, which all the kids used to talk about at school, actually, was the head rolling over the car.
Yeah.
The police officer's head getting cut off, isn't it? And I seem to remember everybody talking about that. And there's also
Most
worth
audacious
mentioning,
kids,
isn't it? The inept cop, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Comes in. We're going to go and find him. And he walks into a door that's sort of closed, do you know what I mean? And that's what you said earlier with this film. It's just, you don't know how to take it, do you know what I mean? The film's great, but you just think, what direction is this going into? You know, it's like, what the fuck?
The bit that's bugged me ever since I was a kid, ever since that first viewing, right, is the wolf is in the centre at the end of the alleyway. Now, the thing about line of sight and trajectory is that if you walk down the centre of the alleyway towards the target and get close to it, and the snipers are at the other end of the alleyway, you've closed their line of sight massively. Like, even the ones slightly to the side, they're going to struggle to shoot past you. Like, she'd have caught a bullet in the leg at least.
Yeah, exactly.
That really irked me.
Yeah. And that's the other thing they changed in this film as well, isn't it? The silver bullets.
Yeah.
Because I'm figuring that they just die by getting shot by ordinary rounds.
Yeah.
So they just try and change the mythos a little bit there with this film.
Yeah, it was dismissed, wasn't it? Because there's a line, oh, do I need to get silver bullets? I went, duh.
No, that's it. Go and find a Dick Miller occult shop somewhere selling silver bullets, which isn't in this film. It's in the other one, but
the idea of victims coming back to taunt you until you pass on the curse or commit suicide, that's a fresh. I mean, obviously it's the first movie like this I saw, so I don't know if it was a fresh take. But having seen what I have since, I think that's a pretty interesting idea that they went for, and it was so well done. And like Skeletal Jack at the end again. Yeah, it looks a bit clunky, but all at the same time, it's really good. And I love the couple. You killed them on Wednesday. Hello.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, for God's sake, do yourself over, because I don't want to be sat in this cinema watching dodgy porn for the rest of my purgatory life, or whatever it is it's in.
And then just a protracted list of ways you could kill yourself. so dark. And I remember I found that light relief when I was a kid and I was scared, and I think that's one of the scenes that sort of won me back to it. And I think by that point I was just like, oh, obviously he was a bit excited because there was more boobs. But then it was also just the roller coaster, like the bigness at the end of it, the cars crashing. I just got carried away with it all. On this rewatch, I just realised the nuance of the comedy a lot more. And then when all the cars are crashing and that woman gets completely fucking run over, that's one of those, like, if I'm at Fright Fest and something like that happens, it's way.
Yeah. Well, this is it. Of course, Fright Fest is just literally on the same street, isn't it? To where you are in Leicester Square, isn't it? So it's kind of got that sort of mood to it.
Yeah, I wish I'd been there the year that he brought the remaster and did the Q&A and everything. I would have loved to have been in the room for that. Gordon actually was from Little Pot of Horrors. He was there that year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Just before we wrap this up, though, but there's another film that I always think's got the same sort of vibe to it. Maybe it's because it's set in London. I think it's another Landis movie, which is Life Force.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I watched that, and it's almost like I feel like I can back it with American Werewolf in London because it's got that same sort of thing, you know. So
it does, doesn't it? I don't know if it's an inept law enforcement that sort of goes with that one.
Yeah,
but...
do you know what I mean? I just thought I'd chuck that one in there whilst we're talking about this. But
what a classic!
It is, isn't it? Yeah, same sort of thing, same sort of shit going on. Got boobs in that movie as well, haven't you?
Non-stop.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, I have a type for what I like in the ladies, and I think that film may have been influential on what that type is. So, yeah. But also, again, prosthetics, like the sucking a corpse dry, very sort of Night of the Living Dead type corpse look to that.
That's right.
I thought that was all pretty well done. That hasn't aged awfully. It's just a bit long as a movie, isn't it?
They actually used one of those, one of the corpses that they suck dry. They used that in the 1999 Mummy movie, just as a bit of trivia. Yeah, it's one of the same ones. So there you go, a little bit of life all chucked into that film, and that's a film that I do enjoy. But I think the special effects have aged badly, if that makes sense. You know what I mean, with the CGI and all that. So.
Oh yeah. I mean that was pushing the boundaries. That was Toby Hooper, wasn't it? Did that? Did he produce it? I know he had a hand in it.
I think it was Toby Hooper, actually. Yeah, I'm trying to think now. So yeah, but they're good films to watch on 11 o'clock. They're more 11 o'clock at night movies to watch. With a beer and sitting in my underpants for all my faults. You know what I mean? Don't judge me, please. Don't judge me, but that's me.
So where are you on the modern horror right now? Like, what's floated your boat in the last sort of year or so?
Good question. I'm just watching. I'll just talk about what I've watched recently. I knew this is going to come up. I'm watching Squid Game at the moment. Stuff like that.
One episode and I'm hooked. So yeah, see where that goes.
So stuff like that's coming out at the moment. But if I'm really honest with you, Boz, I almost called you Bo then. It's Bo.
It's
Boz,
easy done. We're both
same
awesome.
sort of thing. I keep going back to the old. I keep going back to the old classics.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know what it is. I suppose whether it's just sort of comfort food to me or something like that. There's a lot of stuff that I missed growing up. So stuff like The Changeling is something that I watched recently. I keep chucking in Return of the Living Dead and
Part 3, of course.
Well, yeah. So, but no, modern horror. No, there is some really good stuff that's come out, like films like Quiet Place, Hereditary. I think horror's kind of doing really well at the moment. Do you know what I mean? It's become more popular now than it probably was, say, certainly in the noughties.
It's more legitimate, and it's getting more sophisticated, I think, as well. We're getting more sophisticated horror without... Okay, yeah, some of it's pretentious, but a lot of it isn't coming off as pretentious. It's just really well done, and it's got proper budgets, and there's some good stuff. And there's still the really strong indie scene as well. Well, yes, I watched one last night because I heard Duncan McLeish talk about it on his little first 7 reviews, and I'd missed it completely on Shudder. And I'd looked at the poster and I just scanned straight past it. It just shows how ignorant I can be. But it's Barbara Crampton and Larry Fessenden as a couple.
Right.
Like the sound of Jacob's wife.
Right. Barbara Crampton, I like the sound of that already.
Yeah. Oh, it's one of her. She's had this resurgence over the last few years, and the films have been hit and miss, and her performances have also been hit and miss. I'll admit it. There was one. I can't remember what it was called. Played at Fright Fest Halloween. It was her and her daughter, and it was wooden as fuck. It was absolutely awful. And I was like, "Oh, Barbara, no!" And I was almost getting worried that she was putting herself to stuff that wasn't so good, because she'd done stuff like We Are Still Here, which is a really good film, and she's fantastic in that. And what was the other one? Road Games, I think.
She did one with a VHS. Shop, wasn't it? Two Brothers with the videotape or something like that?
Yeah, Beyond the Gates. I mean, again, that's not her best performance, but she's playing the guy from Atmosphere on a VHS tape. It doesn't how good does it have to be? But
I remember that. Yeah,
I love that film. That's where my Graham Skipper man crush started. So yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
I think. We'll allow those. Don't worry about that. It's fine. My missus is well aware of that.
But this Jacob's Wife performance, her and Larry, it's such a fun movie. It's not what you expect. It's a bit hokey in places, but you love it for it.
Yeah.
And she is superb in that film.
Yeah, another film that comes to mind for me, which was quite surprising, I quite liked Colour Out Space and Mandy for a Nicolas Cage scene. Do you know what I mean? I just thought, it's in the sort of indie horror bracket, but all of a sudden, Cage, he tends to chuck a load of movies out, and all of a sudden I thought, he tends to be suiting horror quite well at the moment. Do you know what I mean? And
he's enjoying horror because he gets to oversell it, like the Rage Cage thing. If it pisses you off, then just don't watch anything he's done in the last 5 or 6 years. If you love it, just seek out everything, because he has one line I've realised in pretty much every movie that slays me. In Colour Out of Space, it was something about the alpacas. I can't remember exactly what it was.
No,
but he just yells about the alpacas.
For me, it was him in the car where the shit went so bad that Cage just had this rage in the car where he just went, "I'll be back in a minute," and he sits in the car. Yes. Sorry for anybody spoiling this movie, and he just goes, it's like, well,
it doesn't need words sometimes.
No.
But I saw at Fright Fest this year, Prisoners in a Ghostland.
Oh, fuck me.
Sono movie.
I watched that the other night. Go on, what do you think of that? Jesus.
Oh, mad as a box of frogs. It's not my cup of tea at all, but there's one line in that which I'm not going to spoil for people, but he does that whole raising his voice towards the end of it, and again I just burst out laughing. Just brilliant.
I've got to admit I wasn't a fan of it. I wanted to be. Huh? It had everything in there I should have really enjoyed. I just couldn't. I don't know.
No, those films are too self-indulgent for me. They're just. I don't know what the point is, and I don't think you want me to know what the point is, and I don't think you care, this is the director, that I know what the point is, and in which case I'm not that interested. Some of the visuals are good, but yeah, it fell flat for me as well.
No,
that one line almost redeemed it entirely.
Yeah. I mean, the one I preferred out of that was obviously, as I've just mentioned, the Colour Out of Space. I quite enjoyed Willy's Wonderland. Purely for, again, spoiler, Nicolas Cage killing an animatronic doll with a fucking plunger from a toilet. I was like, okay, got my $5 worth out of this.
Of course, I need to see Pig as well, because I haven't seen that pop up anywhere, but I know that's doing the rounds, so that's his latest one.
I've heard that's supposed to be quite good as well.
Yeah, I think it's a bit more serious. I don't know. Knowing Nicolas Cage, it probably isn't.
But he's done basically everything in his career, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? I remember him from the 90s with Con Air and The Rock and films like that, and then Raising Arizona and
I even like Drive Angry. I didn't hate that either.
Some funny scenes in that, wasn't there? Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
I think that was us getting early Rage Cage. And Mum and Daddy was great at that as well.
So that question you said to me earlier about what horror's doing it for me at the moment, I suppose it's Nicolas Cage in horror.
Anything with Rage Cage and you're in.
Do you know what I mean? I can't help myself. Do you know what I mean? It's like that sort of. He's like that last beer in the fridge that I think I might just save for tomorrow night, and I'm like, oh fuck it, go on.
That's what the RJ stands for, Rage Cage McCready.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I like that. Well, there you go, Boz. I think what we'll do is we'll end it on Cage, because I honestly don't think we're going to get any better or higher than that on this episode. So I think we'll go on a good one. So thanks for coming on to the show today, Boz. It's been great. It's been
thanks, Sammy. It's been an honour.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before I wrap it up, I know you've been talking about your lightsabers and all that. Have you got any more guest spots? Or I know you did a lot with Duncan, didn't you, on the old sort of roulettes and all that? So.
Yeah, I sort of joked with him the other night that I'm squatting on the podcast under the stairs and he hasn't noticed yet. So I'm playing that for all it's worth. Yeah, we did a show this week. It'll be out soon, and I've got Fright Fest Halloween coming up again, so
Yeah.
he wants me to do a roundup with some of the movies on there because the new Alex de Iglesias film is playing, which we are very excited about because we love him.
Fantastic.
Or Alex of the Church, as I call him, because that's what his name means.
Great stuff, man. Honestly, I mean, I love Duncan. I've followed his show for a very long time. Swear to God, there's a fucking clone of that man.
Yeah,
Do you know
there's
what I
3
mean?
of him.
I mean, I've dabbled in podcasting, as you know. Do you know what I mean? Running this show, I can just about get 3 shows out if I can, you know. But I don't know. He does it.
Yeah, that summer series is insane.
How?
Absolutely insane. Like,
Yeah.
if there's Oscars for podcasting, just for the most ridiculous project possible, there should be some. He should be winning some kind of award.
He needs to be. Yes, he does. Yeah, he does.
It's like 5 hours per show, 1 per year, then 3 roundtables at the end, which it's impossible to do one of those in less than 6 hours. It kicked my ass, and I only did 3 of them.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those. I think when I do this mystery show, I think I'm going to do Duncan McLeish. I'm going to spend 30 minutes talking about him and trying to work it out. So, yeah.
I mean, I think it's as simple as he just doesn't need to sleep. But yeah, it's.
There you go.
I mean, the summer series was great. It's the first one I've ever done.
Yeah.
As I said on the show, there was no point having me on any of the earlier ones because I don't watch old movies. So 2010s is my jam. It's what I know. It's my wheelhouse. So, but having said that, all the other hosts clearly watched too many old films because they all got it wrong. So yeah, Deathgasm was the best film of the decade, and nobody voted for it. So they're all completely wrong.
Little bit of controversy there in that show, huh? Yeah.
Been saying this since day one, but they just won't hear it.
I've listened to the show. Some tension in there. There definitely is. Yeah, it's.
No, I mean that's my joke answer, but I honestly think Tigers Are Not Afraid is the best film of the 2010s. Hands down.
Squid Game. There you go. Got a Squid Game scenario there, mate, on that show. All right, Buzz. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, mate.
I'm sure I'll have you back on the show again in the future. We'll
I'd love
talk
to.
some movies. Maybe do a modern movie you like in modern movies. So we'll find something to talk about. So,
Cool.
There you go, guys. Hope you enjoyed the show. That's American Werewolf in London, which has touched on Tom Cruise and Nicolas Cage. As always, that's where we end up. So, hope you enjoyed that. A little bit of admin for the show. I'm a proud member of the Legion Podcast Network, so please go and check out all the other shows on there, including my other show, the Mystery Vault Podcast. You can find this show on iTunes, Spotify, and several other players on the internet. If you put in Bitesize Cinema into Google, it'll take you to somewhere you can listen to the show. We also have a Facebook page, so that's where I'm most active. Put anything on there that you want me to, if there's something you want me to review, let me know. So let's talk about what I'm going to be doing next. I'm going to be doing Brandon Lee's The Crow. I'm going to be trying to do that for before the end of October. And that's going to be with Kung Fu Dave. And yeah, that's it, guys. So as always, keep it bite-sized, keep it...
If you enjoyed this show, then make sure you check out the other great shows on the Legion Podcast Network, like Cinema Psyops, Cinema Beef, Devour the Podcast, Duncan and Bo Come Correct, Exploding Heads Horror Movie Podcast, Friday the 13th, Get Slayed, The Helming Power Hour, Hello, This is the Doom Show, Hero Go Show, Kill the Cast, Underwater Kaiju from Outer Space, Jerry Hates Action, Legion After Dark, Mental Health, Obsessive Cinema, Discourse, Pick 6 Movies, the podcast by The Cemetery, the podcast on Haunted Hill, the Psychosemantic Podcast, Rick Radio, House of Wax, Dude Looks Like the 80s, Rabbit and Red Radio, the Shadecast, Short Bus Cinema, 2 Drink Minimum Commentaries, the VD Clinic, Who Will Survive Horror Podcast, and Witch vs. the Doomsday Clock. With such a wide spread of shows, there is guaranteed to be a niche for you to fall in love with. Horror, politics, movies, books, sex, music, commentaries, health, video games, kaiju, action, news, comedy, and opinions that would most likely get you killed in some parts of the world. We are proud to bring you some of the best podcasting in the world. Check us out at www.legionpodcast.com, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and any other dark corner of the internet where podcasts can be found.